All right. As we begin, Bill, it looks like you're typing something in here, but it looks encrypted. It's a whole bunch of just, I don't know what that is that you're typing in there. So you may want to retype that in. All right, so let's begin, everyone. Want to just thank everybody for the hard work through our standard or typical AEP. Now, as you know it, we do have a little bit of an extension that's available for everybody, where we can assist people who have had technical issues to continue that enrollment. So I want to make sure that everybody's aware that the typical enrollment is over. And you just have to understand that from a rules perspective, we are not able just to enroll someone unless they've had some sort of technical issue. And when you're looking at that, if you're talking to someone, it is very vague on how that technical issue was and how it's defined. And it is on attestation, it's on the honor system. So there is not going to be a question on healthcare.gov in order for you to answer that they had a technical problem. But you also can encourage someone to lie and just say, oh, you had a technical problem. So be careful when you're talking to folks. Make sure that they understand that if they had some problem enrolling, making a payment, or addressing the finality of enrolling, then that would be a technical problem. And then with that technical problem, it would allow you to continue to enroll them. So when you're doing the enrollments, we did touch on last week the methodology for you to complete that enrollment, and you should all be well aware that you will be using the health insurance marketplace, the healthcare.gov, in order to complete that enrollment. That enrollment does need to be completed from beginning to end through the marketplace, and you will do so right on this main page here. Remember that, just a reminder, if you go to the login screen, you are not logging in here, and you are not creating an account for you. This is all about the customer at this point. You will have to make sure that you have your national producer number as well as your federal marketplace identification as you are completing that enrollment. Just a reminder for everybody, if you are not able to complete the enrollment through the marketplace website, pardon me, and you are having difficulties, you can always pick up the phone, do a three-way call with the customer and the marketplace, and complete that enrollment. So that is always an opportunity. The standard things that are still coming up, we're still getting a lot of calls and a lot of concerns. Remember that if you have apostrophes, if you have special characters in the name, for example, if it was O apostrophe Donald, you are going to have an issue with that. So please make sure that you're conscious of that when you're going through the subsidy determination. Just to refresh, you will start that subsidy determination. Your client will get an email to verify their email address, and then they will log in. You will absolutely ask them to log out and continue the process on a Join Me. The process is very smooth. It works very easily. We've been doing them on a quite regular basis here at A&B, and we are seeing that the process works flawlessly. When I say flawlessly, I mean as flawlessly as the direct enrollment would work. The only difficulty that we are experiencing are difficulties with people who don't know how to check their email. Also, difficulties in you not assessing the subsidy determination amount and cost of the insurance before you go through healthcare.gov. So, just a quick reminder, everybody who's been on our calls for the duration are well versed in something called Value Penguin. Please make sure that you're using Value Penguin to start the process. Make sure you're assessing the household size, the county, and the cost. And that's simply because you don't want to have to go through an entire healthcare.gov application to find out that they can't afford the policy. You want to, and before you even get to healthcare.gov, complete your assessment, complete your quote here on Value Penguin, sell the policy, select the policy, make sure that you've identified network issues, make sure that you know exactly what's going to happen because you will have a very close estimate on the subsidy if you identify that ahead of time. Those of you that are a little newer to the Value Penguin understand that when you see a cost variation, when you actually see the subsidy listed here, if this person is eligible for a cost variation under the silver metal plans, that will be illustrated in red. For more details on what that cost variation is going to be, you can simply click on more details, and keep in mind that the 94% variation is our C plan, 87% is our B plan, and then 73 is our A plan. Now, when you are in healthcare.gov, after you've identified the plan that they want, they will not illustrate the A, B, or C when you are on the marketplace. So, for example, with this particular client in this demonstration here, this would be a 1443C. However, when you get to the marketplace, it is simply going to say a 1443, and you'd have to examine the benefits in order to identify whether that's going to be an A, B, or C. So this is when you want to be referencing your matrix. You want to have the plan sold before you even get there, because if this client cannot afford $24 with a $421 subsidy, you don't want to go through the entire healthcare.gov process to find that out later. It's 30 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. You'll be frustrated and aggravated, and it will affect your next sale or maybe the rest of the day, depending on how much bad feelings you would harbor for that. So make sure that you go through that. Do that first. When you are in healthcare.gov, create the account. You could just click the Create the Account button, go through it, and you want to be doing that, of course, on a Join Me or some web share program. Okay. Now, a lot of people have been asking about accessing the SEPs and how that works. So if someone does have a technical issue, if they tried to enroll or they tried to get their subsidy, it came back with no subsidy, they had problems with that, that's a technical issue. If they tried to pay on their policy and couldn't pay, that's a technical issue. All of those technical issues, you can just go straight to the marketplace, complete a new account, and then you would want to use a new email address. Pardon me. Please make sure that you're using a new email address. We've got guidance from Blue Cross that says, it still works with the same email address. Just to make things nice and simple, my advice would be to use a different email address. And if you want to just use the same email address, just be prepared that you could have issues when it comes time for payment. As you're going through that process, there's some things you need to be aware of, and that's with an SEP with other coverage. And I want to talk a little bit about that right now. Now, what happens is that as we've gone through AEP, if you placed other coverage information in the healthcare.gov application, you would be thrown in error. You would not be able to enroll. You would have issues. Well, that still persists. However, there is a workaround for this. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because everyone needs to be aware of it. Now, if someone is losing other coverage, and they are losing other coverage on a particular date, you are not able to enroll on the marketplace unless that date or that life event has already passed, which makes absolutely no sense. However, that's the way they designed the system. So what that means is, let's just say that I have a group insurance policy and I'm losing it on the 30th of this month. But I want to get all of my ducks in a row. I want to complete my application now so I can have a 5/1 effective date. Well, in our world, because what we do is insurance, you want to make sure that that you would do it now, right? It should be no big deal. We would get an effective date of 5/1. However, if you are doing the subsidy application and you list that that other coverage is present, and when you put the date that that other coverage is ending, and you put the 30th of the month, when you get to selecting the plan, it's going to be locked. You're not going to be able to do it. You will not be able to do it until the 1st of the month at that point. It is, I wouldn't call it a glitch in the system. It's just the way they designed it, and it's not appropriate. Now, what you will have to do in order to get around that is make the last day of coverage be the day before you're doing the application. So if I was doing the application today with our Joe client, and Joe client says he's losing it at the end of the month, I would put his last day of coverage as the 9th or yesterday. And if I did it that way, then I would be eligible for a 5/1 effective date through an SEP of loss of minimum coverage, and they would effectively give me a 5/1 effective date. But the rules for the marketplace are that that life event or that change in coverage has had to pass. However, we are not going to allow our customers to go a month without insurance, so you do have to understand that that's the only way that you can get around that. Now, it's not that you're trying to be fraudulent. You're not trying to be falsifying any documents. You're not trying to get an effective date that you don't deserve or you shouldn't get for your customer. but that's the only way you can do it. Unfortunately, there's no other solution to that. Now, your customer will have a letter of credible coverage from their other carrier. They would want to hold on to that. If the marketplace or Blue Cross asks them to present that document, they would have to present that document at some point in time. So, the group SEPs are something that are coming up more and more, but those same life changing events are going to occur with other areas that you're going to come up against. But I think the one that is most affecting us is going to be the groups. Okay. So go into the marketplace, get that done, and get that finished. Now, if you are in a situation where you talk to a customer and then that customer says, well, yeah, I had a technical issue, but I'm not subsidy eligible. So, how do you solve that problem? Well, there are a couple ways to do that. The first way, according to Florida Blue, the Skillsoft, as well as the Job Aid, is to do a paper application, provide documentation of your technical issue, and then send that into Blue Cross. I feel that a workaround that we can access and that we can use is going straight to the marketplace, identifying that there's no subsidy, and then completing the enrollment there. Because we have the gift of this till the 15th, and this is still open water for us to tread in, then you can use that pathway for enrollment. Now, will that change after next week? It might. But what we'll have to do is we'll have to change as we've been doing through the last 6 months. As they throw a new angle at us, we make an adjustment, we make a change as well. So, with those applications, if someone did have that technical issue, you can still utilize the marketplace as opposed to doing a paper application. I'm just not really confident that paper applications up at Blue Cross, with everything that is going on, are going to be the best member experience that you can have. I would much prefer and see everybody do it right on the marketplace. So that's going to be the other point of contention that you're going to deal with. Now, let's kind of take it through the application, and there is the option to make a payment now. And that payment, if you are going to do it electronically, with that payment has to be done for the first and subsequent payments. Now, we've gotten calls, and Giggy's gotten calls, oh, well, they don't want to do that. That's not the way that they should. They want to just pay a bill. Let me just advise everybody of one thing, and we've been doing this for a really long time, as many of you have as well. They really want to, and you want your clients to set up the APO. Because remember, if they cancel the policy, well, that cancels your commission. If they keep it for 3 months and then they decide that they're not going to pay any longer, well, that's a problem. Now, if that's happening and that's what's going on, you're going to get a chargeback, and that client is not going to be able to re-enroll until another SEP for them would occur, another special election period, or next open enrollment window. And they will be out left in the cold with no insurance. So you really need to be aware of that, and you need to push all of your customers when you're doing a healthcare.gov application, when you get to that payment screen, to advise to set up the first and ongoing payments. They can't just do one. I know that people want to just do that one payment. Oh, I'll get a bill for the rest. Let's just do it now. Let's get it out of the way. With over a 500,000 people, well, just about 440,000 people in the state of Florida that enrolled on the marketplace. We need to make sure that your payment goes through and you don't have any headaches. So let's include that information. Remember, they're not getting charged until the policy goes through all of the steps. So that first payment is going to be anywhere between 2 and 3 days before they see that first premium draft anyway. And then you want to make good advice to all of your clients that have made payment, that if they don't see the draft by the last day of the month, to call the HPS number and make a payment. Let me repeat that. Even though you provided the information, and in a perfect world, yes, they would be drafting it. You need to advise your customers, again, if they don't see the money withdrawn from their account, they need to make that payment before the effective date. Because if we get past their effective date, now we're dealing with an SEP. There's going to be more problems, more headaches, and you don't want to have to worry about that. Very clear. I know that everybody is sending a follow-up thank you email with instructions. You should be including that type of language in that thank you email that says thank you for your business. Here's your provider directory. Here's your formulary guide. Here's your this. Here's your that. Here's your phone number for the marketplace. Make sure you provide them all of the data and information that they requested. If your client wants to make a payment after the fact, well, how do they do that? Well, now it's even easier than it was before. So what will happen is, remember, all of your clients are going to have a username and login. So if you don't get the premium payment at time of application, they can always log in with their username and password and then make the payment at that time as well. It's not me advising you to delay that payment, taking that payment, but just so you understand another pathway for them to make that payment. So if you had your customer's username and password, you could just log right in here. You'll see their application. There will be a green button. It's that beautiful green that you see right there at login, and green is the color of money where they can make their payment. Because if they don't pay, then nobody gets paid, so it doesn't work well. So again, they can use the HPS phone number, they can use the binder payment number, they can log in. There's lots of different ways for them to pay, and it's a beautiful thing that now we can set up subsequent payments. So very important. However, there's always a however. You will not get any confirmation of the payment that goes through. And the payment is not going through at time of application. All they are doing is creating an account to where when the policy and documents are all together between the government and HPS and Florida Blue, that at that point they can make that payment. All right, so let's kind of move right into a couple of questions that came through. I have a few applications I ran for my clients, but they don't show up in my agent website. How do I verify that they are in the system, or do I need to resubmit? Or if they are in the system, but I need to do something to get credit for them. Paul, you just call Agent Services. They should be able to guide you down that road and let you know what's going on with that. Call Agent Services and ask them about those clients. And when you say in your agent website, I'm assuming that you're meaning search accounts. So they probably won't be in search accounts for a while. But if you want to have confirmation that they're enrolled, that everything is good to go, just call Agent Services and they'll be able to guide you through that. Regarding Florida Blue products, do the Florida Blue qualified health plans cover individuals that are not covered by workers' comp? I have read the contract and I can't find it anywhere related to an exclusion. Well, Jason, if you've got a copy of a contract, I'd love to see it too. I've been asking for a copy of a true contract from them for a while, unless it was yours that you were reading. You gave them the contract? Oh, oh, okay, great. Never mind then. If they are covered by workman's comp, if you're asking for about 24-hour on and off the job coverage, then that would cover 24-hour on and off the job coverage with our Florida Blue plans. There wouldn't be an exclusion by someone who is covered under workman's comp. I can bring that to the product people and ask them, but it would have to be a clearly defined exclusion. Some of our competitors, such as United Healthcare and some other carriers, don't do the 24-hour on and off the job coverage, and it's clearly defined in their contract. Can we still have them complete the initial payment by calling Blue Cross directly? Absolutely. They can do that if they only want to do the one. If a husband and wife enrolled in a marketplace plan effective with a January 1 effective date, now they find that they will be eligible to enroll in a group plan where they just started a job, do they lose their subsidy qualification? Yes. So if they are eligible for group coverage that the cost of the coverage is less than 9.5% of the employee's coverage, then they are not eligible for a subsidy. They would have to report that to the marketplace. You have two different ways of looking at that, Doug. They should report it to the marketplace. They will potentially and should lose their subsidy. However, I don't believe in all of the things that I'm reading that the marketplace is able to adjust that subsidy. So they're just going to have to cancel that plan completely. At the end of the year, when they do their taxes, that group plan is not really going to show up in the grand scheme of things because of all of the turmoil that is going on with this first year. Good technical advice is yes, they need to cancel that policy, take the group plan as long as it meets minimum requirements and it's less than 9.5%. Okay, someone is just making a comment that they're starting to see that all of their clients that went to the marketplace are now showing up in their search accounts. That is what's supposed to happen, so it's nice to see that what is supposed to happen is happening. So I'm glad to see that that's working out well. I have a small group that appears they will cancel in 6-1. They want to make sure they understand how to enroll all employees. The owner will not qualify for a subsidy, so all applications now need to be done on the marketplace. Subsidy and non subsidy plans, not Florida Blue. No, that's incorrect. Because if they are losing if they are losing minimal essential coverage, then that is going to be a loss of, it's going to be an SEP, loss of group. And then you can do that on the marketplace or you can do it on IST. You're going to have both options for that. The only way that you're going to be able to use IST, though, is if there is no subsidy. If there is a subsidy, you are going to have to go direct to healthcare.gov and complete the applications there. Somebody's saying that they do sometimes assign other agents. So let me just kind of address that. What has happened is that in the AOR process of Florida Blue, as many of you know, that we hold Florida Blue holds the original AOR of the contract during what we call benefit authorization forms, BAF forms, plan changes, always true to the original agent. Now this is under 65 that we're talking about, so let's just address that first. So what's happened is if there was an agent that wrote a policy 10 years ago, and that agent could be, well, quite honestly, could be dead, and not writing business for Blue Cross. They could have went to Cigna or Aetna or a different carrier for the last 10 years, group coverage, been out of the country. Well, when they re-enroll these people, when you've done your due diligence and enrolled that client, what's happening is there's a glitch in the system that is recognizing the old AOR, and there's been identified many cases that needs to be fixed. Now, Florida Blue is aware of this problem. Gigi and the team have been working diligently to try and get them to address and fix this problem, but that is a known glitch. Keep your documentation appropriate. You should have copies of your IST applications, copy of subsidy determination letters, so on and so forth. So you have the appropriate documentation, so that way you can send that up to Florida Blue for fixing and research. They know it's happening, and we're working to get it fixed. So, but now with Medicare, if they are currently a Medicare client, they have to have an SEP or an AEP to make a change. There is no AOR that you can do like an agent of record letter for Medicare applications. So the only way that that would change is if they purchased a new product. So you have to make sure that you're writing a new product at that point in time. So, for example, if I met Ms. DeFalco and she had a Medicare policy, an HMO, lifetime Medicare, but I identify that she really needs a local PPO because she does a lot of traveling, then what I could do is I could write the local PPO. I would be the new AOR, and I would get all of the renewal commissions and new commissions for that particular client. Okay, another question. When can you do enrollment on and off marketplace for a group that lost coverage for 6-1? I think I addressed this in the beginning of the call when we were talking about SCPs. The technical answer, again, is you would not be able to do that enrollment until after the group has ended. So you wouldn't be able to do it until after 6-1. And then that client would get a 7-1 effective date. Now, that doesn't just cut the mustard. So the only workaround that you can do for someone that has a loss of coverage and they are going to be subsidy eligible is going to be by putting the end date to be the day before you're doing the application. It's the only way that you're going to get the effective date that you are looking for, or that customer will have to go through 1 month with no coverage or a short-term solution. So I know that we all want to follow the letter of all the rules. However, these rules have not, no one talked to an insurance agent, apparently, when they designed these rules. Obviously, whoever is working at healthcare.gov has never talked to an insurance agent either, apparently, because we would all be able to tell them very clearly we need to have a future effective date in order, and it's just not available. So you're going to have to use the workaround until it is fixed, if it ever gets fixed. So I would just use that new path. All right. So talked about payments. We talked about SCPs. I hope everybody is really comfortable with the provider directories. That's been coming up a lot. Please make sure that you're assessing the provider directory for network options before you get to the application. Now, really quickly, I want to kind of go over this SCP chart that everybody should have a copy of. Everybody should have a copy of this on their desk so you understand how it works. Um, at this point, everybody on this call should have been through Skillsoft or at least reviewed the Skillsoft platform, the PDF document that Gigi sent out to everyone that has all of the slides and all of the information that you are going to need in order to write business during this new era of what we're doing. Now, this document that you see in front of you, it was part of the job aid, which was part 2 of the Skillsoft training that you just got. Now, what this does is it defines all of the different life-changing events that are acceptable for an SCP. And as you're getting to go through this, you need to read it. I mean, actually read it. When you're reading it, what you're going to notice is that the events are all tied to a 60-day window in most of the cases. So when you are dealing with a change that is going to offer you an SEP or a qualifying event to make a change, it has to be 60 days within that event. Now, if that event was 90 days beforehand, you are not going to be able to make that change. So let me kind of talk about this one right here. Eligible for a product change due to exceptional circumstances or misrepresentations. Now, what's going to happen is if you talk to a customer, and let's say that customer bought a Humana policy in Miami, okay, and they realize that they can't go to their doctor that they want to see, but they bought the policy on a January 1st effective date. But they've had the policy for 2 months. Okay, they've paid for the last 2 months, and now they realize that the hospitals or the doctors that they want to use are not in network. Well, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to note that that life-changing event, that misrepresentation or error happened on the date that they tried to get this new utilization of the policy. It's not going to go back to the first or the effective date, so you have to make sure that you have a conscious conversation with your customer about that. Now, what you will do is there is absolutely no way for you to tell the marketplace that this happened. I know that that's absolutely asinine, but there's no button that you can click. There is nothing that you can do except enroll that person now. You are going to make it look like it is a new AEP application because there's no other way for you to do it. And you would want to hold that documentation so that way, if ever asked to provide the documentation, you can do so. Now, as you see with this misrepresentation, there are 2 options. One's online and one's a paper app only. Now, if they are off marketplace, no subsidy, it would have to be a paper application. And then when you do that, you're going to want a letter from the customer stating how that misrepresentation or problem occurred, and you will include that with the application. Again, it has to be 60 days from the event. So that's really important that everybody understands that, because that's the thing that you're going to come up against the most now is there's a problem with the product or there's a misrepresentation. You are not going to want to change people's policy who already have Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, because you're not going to get paid on that policy. It's a BAF form or a transfer from Blue Select to Blue Options, so tell them to call their local agent or go to the Blue store if they are not your client. If they're your client, then you're going to want to do your due diligence. You're going to want to reference the phone numbers that we've sent out where you can change somebody between metal level. We can also send those phone numbers out again to everybody. So that way you can change somebody from a Blue Select to Blue Options within the same metal level. You could also change somebody from a silver to a silver within the same network as well, just getting them a lower cost. But that's done over the phone. That's not done with the marketplace. That's done with an 800 number that we've provided to everyone. We'll get it back out to everybody. I don't have it right in front of me. And then what we will do is you'll be able to make that change. But remember, there will be no commissions paid for that. So you're doing that out of the goodness of your heart. So you would do that for your customer. If it's not your customer, send them to the Blue store. We've got the Blue stores all over the state. They can call the Blue store and get it there. Get it taken care of there. If someone needs to change their address, if they need to do those kind of changes, that has to be done with the marketplace as well as Florida Blue, and that is in the Skillsoft training on how those changes need to be made. You can go through this document. Everyone should have this document. I know that it is in our Dropbox for you to view and for you to print a copy of it. Okay. A couple questions that came through. An online application will not let me continue doing an online application for a Medicare client. Okay, changing gears a little bit. And the Medicare client is under the age of 65. That's right. So is there a way around this? No, there's not. If a client is under the age of 65, then you have to do a paper application unless they're within the enrollment window 3 months before their birth month, or 3 months after the birth month. That's the only time you can do an IST application for someone aging into 65. If they are 64, 63, just new to Medicare Part A and B, you will have to complete a paper application, and hopefully the phone lines for the telephonic enrollment will be open at some point in time in the very near future. So no workaround for that one, Karen. Sorry. A person who was out of the country for almost 2 months. She came back April 2nd. Can she be considered an SEP for an off-marketplace plan? Okay, so she was out of the country for 2 months. Or was she the other 4 months, Julio? So she would be. You don't even need to do an SEP for her now. Just do a new application for her. And get it completed that way. You're just going to do an application for her on the marketplace. If you want to do an off marketplace plan, you can do a paper application and explain your case, but the marketplace is still taking those applications. So simply go into the marketplace and do an application for her with no subsidy. She was going to want to have a marketplace account anyway, and it's just a good business for her to do it that way. That'll be your smoothest transition for getting that business issued and placed in the most timely of manner. Now, one of the things that I'm surprised nobody has brought up, I haven't heard Gig mention it to me either, and I think it's on this document, is someone who is changing or has a adjustment in their subsidy. And this is a big thing because the way that we've been trained on it is different than how it is going to actually happen. The guidance that we got from the marketplace as well as Blue Cross was that and we wanted people to call the marketplace whenever there were changes in their income to adjust their subsidy amount. Well, it doesn't work. The government is not ready or prepared to do that. Shocker. They are not able to support that. I'm surprised. So what you are going to have to do is, honestly, nothing. If your customer has a change in income, they cannot report that to the marketplace, and they cannot change their subsidy amount. So that's going to be a problem for some people if they have a major loss in job. And then the only thing that you're going to want to do at that point is see if you can access an SEP to enroll them in a new plan at that point in time. Because, for example, if I had a husband and wife and they're both working, the wife loses her job, they had selected a 1431, for example, but now times are tough. They really want to drop down to a lower cost plan, but they can't even afford that because now the husband's not working. Well, you can't just adjust the subsidy and get them, because there's less money and get them a lower cost for the insurance. What we're going to have to do is access an SEP to change their plan at that point and do a new subsidy determination. It's going to be a cumbersome process, but if they just call the marketplace and say, hey, I'm making less money, I want to keep my plan, just lower my price, they can't support it. They can't do it. And that goes the same way for someone who has gotten too much subsidy. So let's just say that I reported my income to be $25,000 a year, but I get a bonus at work and I'm going to make an extra $30,000 or $40,000. Now I would be out of subsidy eligibility. The marketplace can't support it. So what they will have to do is make it up at the end of the year in their taxes in the form of a penalty or in the form of a payback, depending on how much that change was. So just a little bit of different guidance that we got, and unfortunately it was released at the 11th hour like most everything that has been thrown at us at this point. All right. So we will provide you with those phone numbers. There's just been some questions about dental and changes on the plans. We'll get all of that information out to everybody. Everybody should be really comfortable with the provider directories as well as My Prime right now. Using My Prime is really important that you're accessing that to check cost of drugs as well as condition care medications. Also, be advised that Florida Blue IST will be down from Friday to Saturday, and that's just really in the middle of the night. So, unless you're a night owl and you're doing your proposals to match up with your healthcare.gov applications, you won't be able to do that from Friday night to Saturday morning. Not too big of a deal. Remember, everybody, you do want to be creating a proposal for all applications that you completed on Marketplace, so that way Blue Cross has a secondary tracking mechanism, so that way they can make sure that everybody gets paid. All right. I think I've covered everything that I need to today. Does anybody have any other questions that I did not address, concerns, or something that you would like me to cover? Mr. Falco? All right. Well, I will. I'll have this recording available for everybody so they can reference it. I want to thank everybody for their time today. Hope everybody has a great week. Let's sell as much as we possibly can in the next 5 days, and then next week we can talk a little bit more about plans for marketing after the AEP has been completed, unless they extend it again. Who knows? So I hope everybody has a good weekend, has a good week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for your time.